They laughed when I said I'd become rich. Not strangers, my own family. At dinner, they called me delusional, useless, a joke. I walked out with nothing but humiliation burning in my chest. Years later, I sent them one invitation. They came, still smiling. Then the gates opened, and their smiles vanished. Twist, I didn't need revenge, success destroyed them. Now tell me, would you prove them wrong or walk away forever? Comment your choice. Have you ever been betrayed so deeply that it didn't just hurt, it rewrote who you are? Not by strangers, but by the very people who raised you, who watched you grow, who were supposed to believe in you first. Because that's exactly where this story begins. Right after the laughter fades, something darker settles in. The room may go quiet, but inside you, everything is screaming. And the worst part? It's not just what they said, it's how easily they said it, how natural it felt for them to dismiss you like you never mattered. You try to brush it off, tell yourself they didn't mean it, but then another memory hits. Another joke, another look, another moment where you were made to feel small. And, suddenly, it's not one night anymore, it's a pattern. A lifetime. That's when the tension builds, slowly tightening like a knot you can't untie. You start questioning everything. Were they ever on your side? Did they ever believe in you at all? Or were you just convenient to ignore? And just when you think you've reached your breaking point, something shifts. A quiet realization. Maybe the pain isn't the end of your story. Maybe it's the beginning. But here's the twist. What if the betrayal wasn't meant to destroy you? What if it was the exact moment that forced you to become someone they could never control again? And as that thought takes hold, something dangerous replaces the hurt. Not anger. Not revenge. Something colder. Focus. Because now, every insult becomes fuel. Every laugh becomes a reminder. And every doubt becomes a promise. And that promise had a name. Amelia. A 27-year-old American woman who didn't look extraordinary at first glance, but that's exactly what made people underestimate her. Because on the surface, she was just another girl with a stable office job, a quiet routine, and a family that believed they had her future perfectly planned out. But beneath that calm exterior, something was already shifting. Slowly, quietly, dangerously. You see, Amelia didn't just want comfort, she wanted control. She didn't just want a paycheck, she wanted power. And the moment she started saying that out loud, everything changed. The looks, the tone, the distance. It started small, subtle smirks, quiet dismissals, but it didn't stay that way for long. Because every time she spoke about her dreams, the tension in the room grew thicker, heavier, harder to ignore. Until one night, it exploded. But here's where it gets interesting. Because while everyone else saw that night as the moment Amelia made the biggest mistake of her life, Amelia saw it differently. To her, that was the moment everything finally became clear. The roles shifted. The illusion broke. And for the first time, she stopped trying to be understood and started preparing to prove them wrong. Not loudly, not immediately, but with something far more dangerous: silence and patience. And while her family walked away believing they had already won, Amelia was just getting started. Because what they didn't see, what they couldn't see, was the future she was already building in the dark. A future so far beyond their imagination that one day they would be forced to step into it themselves. And when that moment comes, everything they once said will come back to haunt them. And to understand why Amelia's dreams felt so dangerous to them, you have to understand her family. On the outside, they looked perfect. A typical middle-class American household in Texas. Stable, predictable, safe. And that word, safe, was everything to them. Her father believed success meant a steady paycheck, a secure job, and never taking unnecessary risks. Her mother valued comfort, routine, and the quiet pride of not failing. Her older brother? Even worse. He didn't just believe in safety, he worshipped it. To him, ambition was arrogance, and dreaming big was just another way to embarrass yourself publicly. At first, it didn't seem like a problem. It was just the way things were. Dinner conversations revolved around promotions, bills, and keeping life under control. No surprises. No chaos. No dreams that were too loud. But then Amelia started speaking differently. And that's when the shift began. Every time she mentioned building something of her own, the room would tighten. Subtle at first, a glance, a sigh, a forced smile. Then sharper. Colder. Her father would interrupt. Her mother would change the subject. Her brother would laugh under his breath. And just like that, her ideas didn't feel like ideas anymore. They felt like threats. Because in a family built on safety, risk doesn't just look foolish, it looks dangerous. And the more Amelia pushed, the more resistance she felt. Until one realization hit her harder than anything else. It wasn't that they didn't understand her. It was that they didn't want to. Because if she succeeded, it would force them to question everything they had built their lives on. And that was something they could never allow. So instead of supporting her, they did something quieter, more subtle, more destructive. They tried to shrink her. Little by little, comment by comment, laugh by laugh. Until dreaming itself started to feel like a mistake. And yet, the more they tried to shrink her, the clearer Amelia's dreams became. Because what made her different wasn't just ambition, it was the way she saw the world. While her family saw limits, Amelia saw possibilities. While they focused on security, she was drawn to freedom. Not the kind that comes from a stable paycheck, but the kind that comes from building something that belongs entirely to you. At first, it was just a thought. A quiet idea she kept to herself. Late night scrolling through success stories, watching entrepreneurs turn nothing into something. A spark. Small, but persistent. And every time she saw someone succeed, one question echoed in her mind. Why not me? That question became dangerous. Because once it takes root, it doesn't leave. Soon, she wasn't just thinking about it, she was planning. Writing ideas. Sketching possibilities. Imagining a future that didn't look anything like the one her family had chosen for her. But every time she tried to bring that future into the light, the reaction was the same. Silence. Then doubt. Then ridicule. And each reaction hit harder than the last. You could see it in her eyes, the hesitation, the moment she almost pulled back. Almost gave in. Almost accepted the version of life they wanted for her. But then something shifted again. A quiet defiance. Because deep down, Amelia knew something they didn't. Her dreams weren't random. They weren't unrealistic. They were different. And different always scares people who choose to stay the same. That realization changed everything. The fear didn't disappear, but it transformed. It became focus. Every doubt they threw at her became another reason to keep going. Every laugh became a challenge. And slowly, her dream stopped being just a dream. It became a decision. A commitment. A line she refused to cross back over. And here's the twist. While her family believed they were protecting her from failure, they were actually pushing her straight towards something much bigger than they could ever imagine. Because the more they tried to keep her small, the more unstoppable she was becoming. And that unstoppable force inside Amelia was about to collide with reality. Because one night, everything she had been holding back finally surfaced at a dinner table that looked ordinary, but felt anything but. The plates were set. The room was quiet. Too quiet. You could almost feel something building beneath the surface. Then, casually, almost too casually, Amelia spoke. She said she was quitting her job. Just like that. No warning. No hesitation. And for a split second, silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Then came the shift. Her father's fork stopped midair. Her mother's smile froze. Her brother leaned back, already smirking. And in that moment, Amelia knew there was no going back. The tension snapped. Questions fired at her, sharp and fast. Are you serious? Do you even have a plan? What are you thinking? But she didn't flinch. Not this time. She explained calmly, clearly, about her business idea, her vision, her plan to build something bigger. For a brief second, it almost worked. Almost. Because then it happened. A short laugh. Quiet at first. Then louder. Her brother. And just like that, everything unraveled. The laughter spread, turning the room colder, harsher. Her father's face hardened. Her mother looked away. And the words came next, cutting deeper than she expected. This is a mistake. You're being unrealistic. You're embarrassing yourself. Each sentence hit like a blow. You could see it, her grip tightening, her breath slowing, her eyes fighting not to break. But she didn't back down. Not anymore. And that's when the night crossed a line it could never return from. Because her father leaned forward, his voice colder than anything before, and said the one thing that changed everything. The line wasn't just drawn, it was burned into place. And in that moment, Amelia realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. This wasn't just disagreement. This was rejection. Not of her idea, but of her. And as the room fell silent again, the version of Amelia they thought they knew was already gone. And just when you think the worst part of that dinner is over, it isn't. Because the silence doesn't last. It breaks, and what replaces it is even sharper. The laughter comes back, louder this time, more confident, like they've already decided who Amelia is going to be. Her brother leans back, shaking his head, that same mocking smile stretching across his face. You really think you can do this, he says, but it's not a question, it's a judgment. Then another hit. You can't even handle your current job, and now you want to run a business? A small pause. Just enough to let it sink in. Then the mother joins in, softer but just as cutting. We're just worried about you, she says, but the concern feels heavy, suffocating, almost like disappointment disguised as care. And then comes the father again, calm, controlled, final. This isn't ambition. This is delusion. Each sentence lands like a blow, one after another. No space to breathe. No space to defend. Amelia feels it building, the heat in her chest, the tightness in her throat, the urge to speak, to fight back, but something stops her. Because deep down, she realizes this isn't about convincing them anymore. It never was. And that's the twist. The more they laugh, the clearer it becomes. They're not reacting to her reality, they're reacting to their fear. Fear of change. Fear of risk. Fear of being wrong. And suddenly, the laughter sounds different. Not powerful. Not confident. Just loud. Desperate, even. But still, it hurts. It cuts deeper than she expected. Because these aren't strangers trying to tear her down. This is her family, doing it effortlessly, like it's normal. And that's when the shift happens again. Quiet. Invisible. But irreversible. Amelia stops trying to be understood. Stops trying to explain. Stops hoping for support. And instead, she starts remembering. Every word. Every laugh. Every look. Not to hold on to the pain, but to store it. Because one day, she knows, this moment will matter. And when it does, the same voices that laughed the loudest will have nothing left to say. And just when it feels like the tension in the room has reached its limit, her father speaks again. Slower this time. Colder. More deliberate. The kind of voice that doesn't need to be loud to hurt. The air tightens instantly. Everyone goes quiet. Even her brother stops laughing. You can feel it, something is about to break. then it comes. If you walk out of this house to chase that nonsense, don't come back. A pause. Sharp. Heavy. Final. The words don't echo, they sink. Straight into her chest. For a second, Amelia doesn't move. Doesn't breathe. Did he really just say that? Her mother looks away. Her brother smirks again, but softer now, like he knows this just crossed a line. And there it is, the shock moment. Not the laughter. Not the insults. This. Because this isn't doubt anymore. This is rejection. Clean. Clear. Irreversible. The room feels smaller. Colder. And suddenly, everything becomes painfully real. This isn't just about a dream. This is about choosing between her future and her family. The tension spikes again. Her heart races. Her mind flashes, memories, fears, everything crashing together. For a split second, she almost gives in. Almost says, fine, I'll stay. But then another shift. Quiet. Dangerous. Something inside her hardens. Because now she sees it clearly. This was never unconditional love. It had limits. Conditions. Boundaries she was never supposed to cross. And she just crossed one. That's the twist. The moment meant to break her becomes the moment that frees her. Slowly, Amelia stands up. No yelling. No tears. Just silence. Controlled. Intentional. She looks at them one last time, not with anger, but with something colder. Decision. Then she turns and walks away. And with every step, the distance grows not just from that house, but from the version of herself they thought they could control forever. And, just like that, the door closes behind her. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a soft click, but it echoes like the end of everything she's ever known. For a moment, Amelia stands there outside, the night air colder than she expected. No plan. No backup. Just a suitcase and a decision she can't undo. That's where the real story begins. The first few days feel almost unreal. A cheap motel room. Flickering lights. Silence that feels heavier than the shouting she left behind. She tells herself it's temporary. Just a phase. Just the beginning. But then reality hits. Fast. Brutal. Her savings start shrinking. Every expense feels louder. Every mistake feels bigger. She tries to launch her first idea, fails. Tries again, fails harder. Another attempt, nothing. No sales. No response. Just emptiness. The tension builds quickly. Doubt creeps in. Late at night, staring at the ceiling, one question keeps returning. What if they were right? That thought lingers longer each time. Heavier. Colder. And then comes the first real shock. One morning, she checks her account, and it's almost empty. That moment freezes everything. No safety net. No family to call. No way back. The pressure spikes. Her chest tightens. For a second, she considers it. Going back. Apologizing. Pretending none of this ever happened. But then another shift. Quiet. Sharp. Because she remembers that night. The laughter. The words. The ultimatum. And suddenly, going back feels worse than failing. That's the twist. Failure isn't the fear anymore, returning is. So she pushes forward. But it doesn't get easier. Days turn into weeks. Rejections pile up. Emails unanswered. Ideas collapsing before they even begin. She takes small freelance jobs just to survive. Barely enough to eat. Barely enough to keep going. And still, she keeps going. Because now it's not just about proving them wrong. It's about proving to herself that she didn't make the biggest mistake of her life. And in those darkest moments, when everything feels like it's falling apart, something else is quietly forming. Not success. Not yet. Something deeper. Resilience. The kind that doesn't break easily. The kind that doesn't disappear. The kind that, one day, will change everything. And if those first failures weren't enough, reality keeps tightening its grip. Because survival isn't just hard, it's relentless. The days start blending together. Same cheap room. Same cold mornings. Same question every time she wakes up. How much do I have left? And each time, the number gets smaller. That's the pressure. Constant. Unforgiving. Amelia cuts everything. No eating out. No comfort. Sometimes just instant noodles. Sometimes nothing at all. You can almost see it, the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she stares at her phone, waiting for something, anything. An email. A sale. A sign. But nothing comes. And that silence? It's louder than failure. It's suffocating. The tension builds again. Bills pile up. Deadlines pass. Opportunities slip through her fingers just seconds too late. One client ghosts her. Another refuses to pay. Another says, "We went with someone more experienced." Each rejection lands harder than the last. And then the shock moment. One night, sitting on the floor, back against the wall, she realizes she doesn't even have enough for next week's rent. That thought hits differently. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Just cold. Real. For a second, everything stops. Her mind goes blank. Because now, it's not about dreams anymore. It's about survival. And survival doesn't wait. The tension spikes. Panic creeps in. That same thought returns, louder now. Go back. But just as quickly, another shift. Because she remembers who she was at that dinner. And who she refuses to become again. That's the twist. Rock bottom doesn't break her. It defines her. So instead of collapsing, she adapts. She takes any job she can find. Freelance. Gig work. Late nights. Early mornings. No rest. No excuses. It's messy. It's exhausting. It's far from the vision she had. But it's movement. And right now, movement is everything. Because even in the chaos, even in the struggle, something is changing. She's no longer waiting for opportunity. She's chasing it. And slowly, painfully, she's learning how to survive on her own terms. And just when it seems like she's learning how to survive, something deeper begins to crack. Because exhaustion doesn't just affect the body, it seeps into the mind. The late nights. The constant pressure. The silence after every failed attempt. It all starts building into something heavier. You can see it in the small moments. The way she hesitates before opening her laptop. The way her hands pause over the keyboard, like she's afraid of what comes next. And then the thoughts begin. Quiet at first. Maybe this isn't for me. Then louder. Maybe they were right. That's the tension. Not outside, but inside. Every memory comes back sharper now. The laughter. The words. The look on their faces. And suddenly, it's not motivation anymore, it's weight. Crushing, suffocating weight. One night, it hits harder than ever. Sitting alone, staring at nothing, she feels it. Emptiness. Not sadness. Not anger. Just nothing. That's the shock moment. Because when the pain disappears, what's left feels even worse. Numb. Lost. For a second, she stops fighting. Stops thinking. Stops believing. The idea of giving up doesn't feel like failure anymore. It feels like relief. And that's dangerous. Because once you reach that point, it's easy to never come back. But then something shifts. Again. Subtle, but real. Because in that silence, she realizes something no one ever told her. This isn't weakness. This is the cost. The cost of choosing a path no one else understands. That's the twist. What feels like breaking is actually part of becoming. Slowly, she exhales. The weight doesn't disappear, but it changes. It becomes something she can carry. And even though the doubt is still there, she doesn't run from it anymore. She faces it. Because now she knows if she can survive this, she can survive anything. And just when the weight feels almost unbearable, something unexpected begins to rise from it. Not hope. Not yet. Something sharper. Something more dangerous. Pain, turning into purpose. At first, it's subtle. A thought that lingers a little longer than the doubt. A memory that doesn't break her this time, but fuels her. That night at the dinner table. The laughter. The words. The ultimatum. She sees it all again, but differently. Slower. Clearer. And this time, she doesn't feel small. That's the shift. The tension flips. Because now every insult starts to mean something else. Not a verdict, but a challenge. Not an ending, but a starting line. And suddenly, the same voices that once crushed her begin to push her forward. She starts using it. Every rejection. Every sleepless night. Every moment she almost gave up. She writes it down. Replays it. Feeds on it. You can see the change, the way she moves faster, thinks sharper, works longer. Exhaustion is still there, but it no longer controls her. It follows her. That's the twist. The pain didn't weaken her, it trained her. But then comes another moment. A quiet one. She pauses, looking at herself in the mirror. Tired. Worn out. But different. Stronger. And for the first time, she asks a new question. Not, what if I fail? But, what if I win? That question hits differently. It opens something. Expands something. The tension rises again, but this time, it's not fear. It's possibility. And with that, everything accelerates. She stops waiting for the perfect plan. Stops hesitating. Starts executing. One step. Then another. Imperfect. Messy. But real. Because now, she's not chasing approval anymore. She's chasing proof. Proof that she can build something from nothing. Proof that she was never the person they thought she was. And as that fire grows stronger, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The same pain that once almost destroyed her is now becoming the very thing that will make her unstoppable. And just when that fire inside her starts burning strong enough to keep her moving, something finally shifts on the outside. Not big, not obvious, but enough. Because opportunity doesn't arrive loudly, it appears quietly, almost unnoticed, disguised as something small. It starts with a message. Simple, easy to ignore. A potential client asking about a product idea she had almost given up on. At first, Amelia hesitates. Is this real? Or just another dead end? That's the tension. Because she's been here before, hope rising, only to crash harder. But something feels different. Subtle, but real. So she responds. Carefully. Quickly. Then she waits. Minutes feel like hours. Hours feel like days. Every notification sound makes her heart jump. And then it happens. A reply. Not just interest. A request. Details. Pricing. Timeline. It's small, but it's movement. And for the first time in weeks, something inside her lifts. That's the release. But it doesn't stop there. Because one opportunity is never just one, it's a test. She pours everything into it. Every skill she's learned. Every lesson from failure. Every ounce of focus she's built through pain. Late nights return, but now they feel different. Not desperate. Intentional. You can see it, the way she works faster, sharper, more precise. And then, the moment. The client says yes. A deal. Her first real deal. That's the shock moment. Not because it's huge, but because it's real. Proof. Tangible. Unavoidable. For a second, she just stares at the screen, not fully believing it. After everything, something finally worked. But here's the twist. It's not the money that changes her. It's what it represents. Validation not from others, but from reality itself. That she can create value. That she can build something that people actually want. And suddenly, everything accelerates again. Because now, it's no longer a question of if. It's how far. The fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its power. Because she's crossed a line. The line between trying and proving. And as she sits there, holding on to that first small win, one thing becomes clear. This wasn't luck. This was the beginning. And once that first yes becomes real, something shifts again. Not just outside, but inside Amelia. Because one small win doesn't change your life instantly, but it changes how you see yourself. And that changes everything. At first, it's just momentum. She completes the project carefully, almost obsessively, double-checking every detail, afraid to lose the only chance she has. That's the tension, because success, even small, now feels fragile. One mistake, and it could disappear. But then, the client responds. Not complaints. Not silence. Satisfaction. Even praise. That's the release. Short, but powerful. For the first time, Amelia doesn't just survive, she delivers. And that changes how she moves next. She reinvests every dollar. Learns faster. Works smarter. Another client comes. Then another. Small projects. Small payments. But consistent. Real. You can almost see it, the shift in her posture, the way she opens her laptop without hesitation now, the way her eyes focus sharper than before. But then, the shock moment. One day, she checks her account and realizes she's not just surviving anymore. She's stable. Not rich. Not yet. But stable. That realization hits differently. Quiet, but deep. Because for so long, stability was something her family used against her. And now, she's building it her own way. That's the twist. The same thing they told her to chase safely, she's creating through risk. But the story doesn't slow down. Because success, even early, brings new pressure. Expectations rise. Mistakes cost more. The fear returns, but in a new form. Not fear of failure, but fear of losing what she's built. And yet, instead of freezing, Amelia leans in. Because now she understands something most people never do. Success isn't a moment, it's a process. And she's finally inside it. Step by step, deal by deal, she's no longer guessing. She's building. And with every small win stacking on top of the last, one truth becomes undeniable. This is no longer luck. This is direction. And just when things start to feel stable, everything accelerates in a way Amelia never expected. Because consistency builds quietly, but breakthroughs? They explode. It begins with one project. A product she almost didn't launch. A campaign she nearly delayed. At first, nothing unusual. A few views. A few clicks. Normal. Predictable. But then something shifts. The numbers start moving faster. Refresh. More traffic. Refresh again. Even more. That's the tension. Because she's seen spikes before, and watched them die just as quickly. But this time, it doesn't slow down. It grows. Rapidly. Uncontrollably. Orders begin coming in. One after another. Notifications stacking faster than she can read them. Her phone won't stop buzzing. Her screen fills with sales. Messages. Requests. That's the release, but it's overwhelming. Almost unreal. And then, the shock moment. She refreshes her dashboard and freezes. The numbers have multiplied overnight. Not double. Not triple. 10 times. Maybe more. For a second, she just stares, trying to process what she's seeing. This isn't a small win anymore. This is something else. Something big. Something dangerous. Because with that kind of growth, everything changes. That's the twist. Success doesn't feel calm, it feels chaotic. Suddenly, pressure returns at a new level. Can she keep up? Can she deliver? Can she handle this? But instead of stepping back, Amelia steps in. Fully. She adapts faster than ever before. Expands. Hires help. Optimizes everything. Days blur into nights again, but now fueled by something different. Not desperation. Momentum. You can see it, the intensity, the speed, the focus sharpening to another level. And as the wave keeps rising, one truth becomes undeniable. This isn't just growth. This is a breakout. The moment everything she's built finally goes public. And once that explosion doesn't fade, it evolves. Because going viral is one thing, but building something that lasts? That's a different game entirely. And Amelia knows it. The orders keep coming. The numbers keep rising. But now, it's no longer about reacting, it's about structure. That's the shift. Because chaos, if left alone, becomes collapse. So she makes a decision. A dangerous one. She stops doing everything herself. At first, it feels wrong. Letting go. Trusting others. Hiring her first freelancer. Then another. Small steps, but each one carries risk. What if they fail? What if they ruin what she built? That's the tension. Because now, it's not just her reputation, it's a system forming around her. Emails get delegated. Tasks get assigned. Processes begin to take shape. And slowly, the pressure changes. Less personal. More strategic. That's the release. But it doesn't get easier. Because growth brings new problems. Faster than she expects. One mistake from a team member leads to customer complaints. A delayed order sparks backlash. Negative comments start appearing. And then, the shock moment. For the first time since her success began, something breaks publicly. A wave of criticism. Visible. Loud. Unforgiving. For a second, everything freezes again. Is this the end? Did she grow too fast? But then the shift. Because this time, she doesn't panic. She responds. Fixes. Learns. Improves. That's the twist. She's no longer the girl reacting to failure. She's the leader adapting to pressure. So she doubles down. Builds systems. Trains her team. Refines her brand. Late nights return, but now filled with planning, not survival. Whiteboards. Strategies. Meetings. Vision. You can see it, the transformation. She's not just working in the business anymore. She's building the business. And as the structure strengthens, something powerful happens. The chaos stabilizes. Revenue becomes predictable. Growth becomes intentional. And the company becomes real. Not an idea. Not a phase. A company. Her company. And standing in the middle of it all, Amelia realizes something that changes everything once again. This is no longer about proving anyone wrong. It's about creating something they could never have imagined. And once the company becomes real, the numbers begin to tell a different story. Not just growth, but scale. Because what started as survival money slowly turns into something else. Something bigger. At first, Amelia doesn't even notice it. She's too focused. Too deep in the process. Revenue comes in, gets reinvested, moves out again. Fast. Constant. But then one day, she pauses. Just for a moment. Opens her dashboard. And actually looks. That's the shift. Because this time, the numbers don't just cover expenses, they exceed them. By a lot. The tension builds quietly. She checks again. Refreshes. Same result. Higher, even. Another account. Another stream of income. It's all there. Real. Verified. And then the shock moment. She realizes she's no longer just stable. She's wealthy. Not comfortable. Not getting by. Wealthy. The kind of number her family once said was impossible. For a second, everything slows down. The room feels different. The air feels lighter. Because this isn't a guess anymore. It's proof. That's the release. But it doesn't come with relief the way she expected. Instead, it comes with clarity. Because here's the twist. The money doesn't feel like the victory she imagined. Not fully. It's powerful, yes, but it's quiet. Controlled. Almost secondary. What hits harder is what it represents. Freedom. Choice. Control. The ability to decide where she lives, how she works, who she becomes. And suddenly, the meaning of success shifts again. It's no longer about having more. It's about needing less approval. But even then, the escalation continues. Because with real money comes real decisions. Investments. Expansion. Risk at a higher level. One wrong move now costs more. The pressure returns, but sharper, more precise. And yet, Amelia doesn't hesitate. Because she's not the same person who walked out with a suitcase. She's built for this now. So she steps forward. Confident. Calculated. Intentional. And as her financial world expands, assets growing, accounts multiplying, opportunities opening, one truth becomes undeniable. She didn't just escape the life they planned for her, she replaced it with something they could never comprehend. And once that level of success becomes her new normal, the idea appears. Quiet at first. Almost unreal. A house. Not just any house, something bigger. Something symbolic. At first, Amelia ignores it. It feels excessive. Unnecessary. But the thought doesn't leave. It grows. Because deep down, she knows it's not about luxury. It's about proof. That's the shift. So she starts looking. Listings. Locations. Prices that once felt impossible now feel reachable. But still, there's tension. Because this isn't just a purchase. It's a statement. A line she's about to cross permanently. And then she finds it. A modern mansion. Wide glass walls. Open space. Light pouring in. Everything her old life never had. She walks through it slowly. Room by room. Each step heavier than the last. You can almost see it. The memories flashing. The small motel room. The empty bank account. The voices telling her she couldn't do it. And then the shock moment. She realizes she can buy it. Not dream about it. Not plan for it. Buy it. Right now. The silence hits differently. Because this is real. That's the release. But it's not emotional the way you'd expect. No tears. No celebration. Just a deep, controlled breath. And then the twist. This isn't about showing the world anything. It's about closing a chapter she never thought she'd escape. So she signs. Calm. Certain. Final. And just like that, it's hers. The keys in her hand feel heavier than anything she's ever held. Not because of what they open, but because of what they represent. And as she stands there, inside a life that once felt impossible, one truth settles in. She didn't just change her future, she rewrote her reality. And once everything is finally hers, the house, the success, the life she built from nothing, a thought returns. Not loud, not emotional, just quiet, but persistent. Her family. At first, she ignores it. There's no need, right? No reason to look back. But the thought doesn't leave. It lingers in the silence of those wide, empty rooms. It follows her as she walks through spaces they once said she would never have. That's the shift. Because now it's no longer about them, but about closure. So one evening, she sits down. Calm. Focused. opens her laptop, and starts typing. Not a long message. Not emotional. Just a simple invitation. I'd like you to come visit this weekend. That's it. No explanation. No details. No hint of what's waiting for them. The tension builds in the silence after she hits send. Because this isn't just an invitation, it's a test. Days pass. No reply at first. Then one message. Short. Curious. Suspicious. Another follows. Questions. Doubt. Even a hint of sarcasm. What's this about? That familiar tone hasn't changed. For a second, she pauses. The past flickers back. But this time, it doesn't pull her in. That's the twist. She doesn't respond emotionally. She doesn't explain. She simply confirms. Time. Address. Nothing more. And that restraint says everything. The shock moment comes quietly. Because for the first time, she realizes something powerful. She doesn't need them to understand anymore. She doesn't need approval. This meeting isn't about proving them wrong. It's about showing them reality. And as the day approaches, the tension rises again, but differently. Not fear. Not doubt. Anticipation. Controlled. Measured. She prepares the house. Not to impress, but to reveal. Every detail in place. Every space ready. Because when they walk through that door, they won't just see success. They'll see the version of her they never believed in. And standing in the middle of it all, Amelia knows one thing for certain. This isn't revenge. This is something far more powerful. It's truth. And the moment that message reaches them, everything begins to shift on their side. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But enough to stir something they can't ignore. At first, it's confusion. Her brother reads it twice, then scoffs. What is this supposed to be? He mutters, that familiar edge of sarcasm still there. But this time, there's hesitation underneath. That's the tension. Because something feels off. Amelia never reaches out. Not like this. Her mother reacts differently. Quiet. Uneasy. She stares at the message longer than she should, as if trying to read between the lines. Why now, she whispers, more to herself than anyone else. And then the father. Silent. Still. His eyes fixed on the screen, but his expression harder to read. That silence says more than any words. Days pass, but the question lingers. Curiosity grows. Doubt follows. Is this a trap? A mistake? Or something else entirely? And then the shift. Because despite everything, they agree to go. That's the release. But it's not comfort. It's tension of a different kind. The drive there is quiet. Too quiet. No jokes. No laughter. Just occasional glances, unspoken questions hanging in the air. You can almost feel it, the unease building with every mile. And then, the shock moment begins to form. As they approach the address, something doesn't add up. The neighborhood changes. The houses grow larger. More distant. More expensive. Her brother frowns. Her mother straightens in her seat. Even the father leans forward slightly, eyes narrowing. This doesn't feel right. That's the twist. Because for the first time, doubt isn't directed at Amelia's dream. It's directed at their own assumptions. And as the car slows down, turning toward a gate they never expected to see, one realization hits them all at once. Whatever they thought they knew about her was wrong. And as the car finally slows to a stop, the silence becomes unbearable. No one speaks. No one moves. Because right in front of them stands the mansion. Massive. Modern. Impossible to ignore. For a second, no one reacts. It doesn't register. It can't. That's the tension. Her brother lets out a short, confused laugh. This isn't it, right? But no one answers. Her mother's eyes widen, scanning every detail, the gates, the glass walls, the scale of it. And then the father steps out first. Slow, careful, like he's walking into something he doesn't understand. That's when it hits. This is the address. This is where she called them. And suddenly, the shock explodes. Not gradual, not subtle, instant, heavy, real. Their assumptions collapse in silence. The same people who once laughed now stand there, unable to speak. And just when the tension feels like it can't go any higher, the gates begin to open. Smooth, controlled, final. The sound alone is enough to send a chill through the moment. Because now there's no denying it. This isn't a mistake. This is hers. They walk in slowly, each step uncertain. The ground feels different beneath their feet. The space too big, too clean, too far from anything they expected. You can see it, the shift in their faces. Confusion turning into realization. Realization turning into something deeper. Something harder to admit. And then the twist tightens. Because this isn't just about wealth. It's about contrast. Every step they take inside that house is a reminder of every word they said. Every doubt. Every laugh. And now, those echoes are louder than ever. Her brother avoids eye contact. Her mother's hands tighten slightly. The father says nothing. But his silence has changed. It's no longer judgment. It's something else. And just when the weight of that realization settles fully, a voice breaks through. Calm. Steady. Unshaken. You made it. They turn. And there she is. Amelia. Standing at the top of the stairs. Not angry. Not emotional. Just composed. In control. And in that moment, everything flips completely. Because they didn't just walk into a house. They walked into the truth they refused to believe. And just when that overwhelming silence settles between them, Amelia does something no one expects. She turns calmly and says, "Dinner is ready." Simple. Normal. Almost ordinary. That's the shift. Because after everything they've just seen, normal feels impossible. Yet she walks ahead, leading them into a dining room more elegant than anything they've ever known. Long table. Soft lighting. Perfect arrangement. Every detail controlled. And as they take their seats, the tension becomes suffocating. No one speaks. Not her brother, who once laughed the loudest. Not her mother, who always had something to say. Not even her father. The silence stretches. Heavy. Pressing. You can almost hear it, the clink of utensils, the quiet breathing, the unspoken thoughts crashing in their heads. That's the build. Because this isn't just dinner, it's confrontation without words. Amelia sits at the head of the table. Calm. Composed. Eating slowly as if nothing is wrong. And that contrast makes it worse. Her brother glances up, then quickly looks away. Her mother fidgets slightly, hands tightening around her glass. Her father keeps his eyes down. And then, the shock moment. They realize something terrifying. She's not angry. She's not trying to prove anything. She's already past that. That's the twist. The person they tried to break no longer needs their reaction. No longer needs their validation. The power they once held over her is gone. Completely. And that realization hits harder than any argument ever could. The tension rises again, but now it's internal. Regret. Discomfort. A quiet kind of shame creeping in. Because every bite of that meal tastes like memory. Every second reminds them of who she used to be and who she has become. And sitting there, surrounded by a life they never believed possible, one truth becomes unavoidable. The silence isn't empty. It's full of everything they wish they could take back. And just when that silence feels like it might last forever, Amelia finally speaks. Not loudly. Not emotionally. but with a calm that cuts deeper than anything they've heard before. "I didn't invite you here to prove anything," she says, placing her fork down gently. That's the shift. Because every word now carries weight. Her brother looks up slightly. Her mother freezes. Her father slowly lifts his gaze. The tension tightens instantly. "I invited you here," she continues, "so you could see what happens when someone doesn't listen to fear." A pause. Sharp. Controlled. You can feel it, the words landing, one by one. No anger. No blame. And that makes it harder to escape. That's the release, but only for a second. Because then comes the twist. "You weren't wrong for being afraid," she adds quietly. And for a moment, confusion replaces guilt. But then she finishes. "You were wrong for letting that fear define what I could become." Silence again. Heavier this time. Because now it's not just about the past, it's about truth. Raw. Unfiltered. Unavoidable. The shock moment hits not through volume, but through clarity. Every doubt they had, every word they used to hold her back, is now exposed for what it really was. Not protection. Not wisdom. Limitation. And suddenly, the power dynamic flips one final time. Completely. Amelia doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Because now, she owns the narrative. "The biggest mistake," she says softly, "is not failing. It's never allowing yourself to try." That line lingers. Echoes. You can see it, the way her brother looks down, the way her mother's eyes soften, the way her father doesn't interrupt. Because there's nothing left to argue. And as the weight of her words settles into the room, one truth becomes undeniable. This was never about revenge. It was about becoming someone they couldn't ignore. Someone they couldn't control. Someone they couldn't define. And sitting there, in a life built entirely on her own terms, Amelia proves something far greater than success. She proves that your value is never decided by those who doubt you, only by what you choose to do next. And as her words settle into that heavy silence, something else begins to happen. Not just in that room, but in you. Because suddenly, this isn't just Amelia's story anymore. It feels familiar. Too familiar. That moment when someone laughed at you. When they doubted you. When they made you feel small for wanting more. You can see it, can't you? A memory flashing back. A voice you never forgot. That's the tension. Because deep down, you know, it wasn't just her. It could have been you. And, maybe, it still is. The room fades, but the feeling stays. That quiet frustration. That unspoken anger. That question you never answered. What if I tried anyway? And just when that thought starts to grow, something shifts. Because Amelia didn't have anything special at the beginning. No support. No safety net. Just a decision. That's the release. A small, simple choice to keep going when everything said stop. But here's the twist. Most people never make that choice. Not because they can't, but because they listen. To fear. To doubt. To the same voices that once tried to define her. And that's the real shock. Not that she succeeded, but that so many others never even start. Let that sink in. Because right now, there's a version of your life that only exists on the other side of that decision. And every second you wait, it stays out of reach. The tension rises again. Not from her story, but from yours. What are you still holding back? What are you still afraid to chase? And as that question lingers, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The difference between staying where you are and becoming who you could be might come down to one moment. One choice. One step you haven't taken yet. And now, the question isn't about Amelia anymore. It's about you. Because right at this moment, you're standing at the same invisible line she once faced. Stay where it's safe, or step into something uncertain. You can feel it, can't you? That hesitation. That voice in your head saying, what if it doesn't work? That's the tension. Because deep down, you already know what you want. You're just afraid of what it might cost. But here's the release. Every version of your future is waiting on one decision. Not 10. Not later. 1. Right now. And here's the twist that most people never admit. Doing nothing is also a choice. A quiet one, but a permanent one. That's the real shock. Because years from now, you won't regret failing. You'll regret not even trying. Let that hit. So I want you to be honest. Not with me, but with yourself. If you were in her position right now, after everything you've seen, would you walk away and prove them wrong? Or would you go back and live the life they chose for you? No excuses. No, maybe. One answer. Type it in the comments. I walk away or I go back. Choose.